Okay, good afternoon. This is Debbie Davis. It is August 25th, 2025. So I wanted to play a couple videos that I've just been sent, that I just, came across, and information that have some good information on them regarding this targeted individual program, and just and also being targeted, the military, and also some a DOD law that I found out about that was signed in 2021 under Biden, that can literally use the military and other targeted people as experimental in experimental projects illegally without our awareness. Or I'm not saying myself, but I'm saying there's a lot of people that say, that are going through a lot of various different things, veterans and other just targeted individuals. They say they're being, they said they've been hit by directed energy weapons. Okay, this has been talked about, the Havana syndrome, in the past. That had, it were these government people said they were hit by some kind of sound and they had actual brain damage from it. Okay, and then they tried to blame it on Russia or something. Okay, this is the CIA. This is not Russia. We know now it's our own government. Okay, so quit trying to blame it on Russia. I mean, there was an actual DOD law that was passed, U.S. Code 980, under Biden. December 2021, the DOD passed a law under Biden, U.S. Code 980. The funds appropriated to the DOD, they were funds appropriated to the DOD for experimental purposes, but it cannot be used without consent of a person. But they're using it without your consent, and it cannot be used for the benefit. It has to be used for the benefit of that person. Okay. But our own government has violated their own laws, because there's all these people saying the same thing, that they've been hit by directed energy weapons, or they actually have neural monitoring devices put in them illegally without their consent. Okay, this has been talked about, like I said, way back when the Havana syndrome came out. Where it was some kind of U.S. officials that were hit by something in Cuba. Well, it was probably some U.S. officials that were probably maybe going to speak against something regarding our own government, the DOD or the CIA, is my guess. Okay, and then that was probably a form of punishment by our own government that did that to them. Of course, they always try to blame things on Russia. It was not Russia. I don't believe it had anything to do with Russia. We know now it's our own government. I mean, there's a law right here. Okay, well, anyway, it's just that we have so many people saying the same thing. So many targeted individuals that are having these same type of experiences. And then also, I personally have talked about me being targeted by the police like crazy. Now, this just came out today that it turns out that the police are getting their information on who to pull over from these fusion centers. These fusion centers, I've talked about them. They're called the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. They're right in St. Paul. That's not some kind of criminal investigative center. It's called a fusion center. And they're CIA people there, and that is who is sending the police this information on who to pull over. And they don't even know who they're getting the information from, but yet they follow it anyways. Okay, so this was just...
Okay, and then the key character, it says the Ultima was at Exxon, and I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Carrizo Springs.
This is what they're getting. They're getting like text messages. This is from
the Pathfinder.
This is from a YouTube channel called Look Out for Charlie. So it's Look Out FA space Charlie. Okay. And so he's exposing this.
And then it shows a photo of another car here, rental, odd travel, just hit 85 eastbound towards Dilley. This is scary. The stuff that I talk about is much more high tech.
I mean, I have literally about 100 videos of the police targeting me in this way. And I know they've been getting the information. They're tracking me from my GPS, and they're tracking me from these fusion centers. And I know I just haven't been able to figure out exactly. Now this is actually speaking about it, how it works. Okay, so basically you're taking orders from the CIA on who to pull over, and you think you're not going to get in trouble for that? Now we know exactly where you're taking your orders from and how it works, and how, it talks about on this channel what comes in right to their the text messages that come in to them and how they come in. They don't even know who they're pulling over. They're just told to pull us over. Okay, and you think that's legal, and you think you're not going to get in trouble for that? Well, I'm sorry. I really, I'm sorry. That's violating people's constitutional right. I have a whole list here of the things that you're violating, because clearly you don't know the law. So, let's see. You're violating our constitutional rights of Fourth Amendment rights to be able to feel safe and secure in our own home and property without illegal search and seizure. That's one thing you're violating. You're violating the color of law. Like you're abusing your abusing your authority with your uniform. That's color of law. You're stalking, code 2261A. That's called stalking. So you're going to get in trouble for that as well. Let's see. Federal law, Title 18 code. You're violating Nuremberg codes. Let's see. Basically violating your oaths of office. You're completely violating all of your oaths of office that you took to protect and serve. So, of course, you're going to get in trouble if you continue, this type of thing. You're getting information from the CIA. I've talked about this before in my videos. I've showed the chart. I've showed the CIA chart where, at the top of it is the CIA out of Denver. Then they send down the information to the FBI. Then the FBI sends it down to the police. Where now, apparently they're just using these fusion centers. And the fusion center is on the chart that I've shown. And nobody knew what these fusion centers for. I believe they are the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension centers. They're in every state now. And those are actually fusion centers. They're like call centers where they can bypass our phone calls. Instead of going to 911, if we're in trouble, it'll go to the fusion center. And this is operated by the CIA. Okay? So if you try to call for help, it won't actually reach where you expect it to reach. So, this is a violation of so many rights that, and it's a violation of the Geneva Convention, which this guy talks about in another video that I'll show. But let me just play this video.
It's a low-tech version of parallel construction. Then it says no PC inside Medina County. The next text says you have 2 or more heading your way, informing the cop this. The silver Acura and blue Ford. 10-4. So this is parallel construction. They are sending information that they find odd, right? And then you're getting pulled over and you don't know why you're being pulled over, and they're asking you all these weird questions. Well, that's because it came from a fusion center or one of these centers where these spies have access to license plate readers, street cams, cameras from gas stations. They have access to all this stuff. And now they're getting people to link their cameras up on their homes to the police database so that the police can watch from there as well. And it's very, very scary that this is going on because they're using it for stuff like this. Just anything that they find weird, they're sending the cops after these people to pull them over. Like you drive around the block twice, right? And they're like, okay, that's weird. Let's have a cop pull them over. it's very, very scary, but I wanted to point this out that it does exist, and here is a low-tech example of parallel construction at work. Now, somebody brought up the weird camera angle in the Giovanni Pelletier case and how it could catch that, him running across the freeway. Well, it's actually very simple. This is from the freeway area right here, from where the camera caught it. So he would be back here behind the camera angle, running down the hill. Right there, that blue roof up here, that's the top of Lowe's. And the camera is pointed in this direction and caught him running from like 400 and some feet away. That's not hard to catch. The reason why it was so hard to see and so grainy is because they had to zoom in so far to see it, right? And someone sent a message saying that these voices don't tell people that they're demons and that this was paranormal or schizo or some shit. The part that I remember clearly is these voices don't tell people that they are demons, and that is absolute bullshit.
Okay, so then he talks a little bit about this program that this guy is talking about, how apparently they have been using, the DOD has been using different people without their consent and different targeted individuals. Okay, this is another video I want to play today. This is that talks about this more clearly.
How's everybody doing?
So this is from a video called Targeted Ones. Okay, and this guy is a targeted individual. I don't know his exact story. He's going to discuss the Department of Justice legalizing non-consensual human experimentation. There's a statute where the DOD believes it has the legal authority to use human test subjects against their free will or without consent. And this is to the list of and he lists the statutes that they're violating. AHRP.org and 10 US 980. There's a lot of people that are experiencing the same thing. He lists his different YouTube channels that people are talking about these type of things. There's targeted individuals, targeted victims, targeted justice, neural monitoring, neural transmission, transhuman agenda, DARPA. DARPA is involved in this type of thing. DARPA is some kind of government. It's part of the military-industrial complex. Okay, DOD, DOJ, Department of Defense, Department of Justice, Pentagon, fifth generation warfare, torture, gang stalking, TI, and tyranny. Those are the different websites he references here. But his video is Targeted Ones. But he describes it really well, so I'll just play the video of what has been going on. And like I said, it's not just him saying it. There's all kinds of people that have all these different channels now. There's one guy right in Minnesota called Targeted Minnesota that talks about how he's literally ending up in like almost in a wheelchair from all of the directed energy weapons hitting his spine or his legs. Yeah, they hit his legs so he can barely walk. And that guy's Targeted Minnesota. I know people personally that are having these type of things happen. I've been hit by a directed energy weapon myself, and it was, I could barely like function for a while until it kind of wore off. Thankfully, it wasn't permanent. But if I would, if you're being hit all the time, daily, I can see how it can do permanent damage.
How's everybody doing? Earlier this morning, I made my first driving video. I woke up. I only got 3 hours of sleep last night because they kept me up doing cranium, severe cranial targeting. It kept me up. And so I only got about 3.5 hours of sleep, if that, before I had to go to work. So I woke up a little grumpy, and I decided I needed a vent. So while I was driving to work, I figured I'd shoot a video kind of documenting what happened to me. So if you didn't catch that, it's the previous video to this. I believe it was video number 12. So go ahead and watch that. Today, I want to discuss the Department of Defense having a law that allows them to use humans without their consent as test subjects. I found this article on the Alliance for Human Research Protection, so ahrp.org. I'll put a link in the description to the article that I located, but we're going to go ahead and read it. I'll shoot a quick screenshot of the page up.
So he's just gonna read it.
So the article reads, 2001, U.S. DOJ legalizes non-consensual human experiments. DOD, which is the Department of Defense, waives informed consent. Now, I'm not quite sure where the Department of Justice derives its authority to legalize non-consensual human experiments. They're not a legislative body. So for the Department of Justice to be able to legalize non-consensual human experimentations is beyond me. It really is a breach of your natural right. And if for the Department of Justice, especially in the form of neural monitoring, to legalize something that is a breach of your privacy, which is protected under the Constitution of the United States, is completely asinine. So every branch of the United States government is bound. Their main primary duty, especially when it comes to law, is to uphold the Constitution of the United States. So for them to legalize, especially neural monitoring, for them to legalize neural monitoring is beyond me. It's a breach of the fiduciary duty. So these alphabet soup agencies aren't upholding the law of the land, which is the Constitution of the United States. Now, I don't even want to get into the neural transmissions, but that's what this aspect of it. But it's a natural right for you to have free will. That's the way God intended it, and that's exactly how we're going to win this fight. For them to be experimenting on you with neural transmissions, oscillated neural transmissions, getting you to move your head or move other body parts, or getting you to act out in a certain way, or regulate your mood, regulate your behavior, it goes against anything human for some outside force to come in and have the authority to regulate that. So let's go ahead and read this article. In 2001, U.S. DOJ legalizes non-consensual human experiments. DOD waives informed consent. That's the title. November 2001, U.S. Department of Justice legalizes non-consensual experiments. Experimenting on prisoners of war is explicitly prohibited by the Nuremberg Code, the Geneva Conventions, and U.S. law, 18 U.S. Section 1430. Lawyers in the Department of Justice, the DOJ, Office of Legal Counsel, OLC, accommodated crafting a memo that declared the use of detainees in biological experimentation was a non-grave breach of the Geneva Convention. So that kind of dives in to the graphene oxide, the neural monitoring, and then oscillated neural transmission research that I believe DARPA is doing on me, or the Department of Defense. We'll just say DARPA because that's who handles this kind of research. I'm not sure how it's not a non-grave breach of Geneva Convention. I personally have not read the Geneva Convention. I'm probably going to do that after this video because I'm just into that kind of research. I wish I would have beforehand, but maybe that'll be another video. So December 2001, Defense Authorization Act authorizes the Secretary of Defense to waive informed consent for human subject experimentation. This was a direct contradiction of presidential and DOD policy memos issued in the 1990s prohibiting waivers of informed consent related to classified research. Now, we all know that if in my previous video when I'm talking about DARPA's BCI or brain to computer interface research, that they openly state that they're involved in. How they're doing it is finding individuals like me and against their consent throwing them into the mix and doing whatever research they want. It's torture. Okay, so even the Department of Defense, okay, which, you know, they swear an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, but they openly, well, not openly, but then they breach that oath by conducting this research using things like neural monitoring, which we've already proven exists in the Colorado House Bill 24-1058. So we have a breach of fiduciary duty or a breach of public trust within the Department of Justice, within our own Department of Defense, so the Pentagon. You know, I'm not sure what kind of country we're living in, but this isn't some banana republic, okay? This is not going to continue. I can promise them that. I know they're watching. So it's going to be coming to an end, and I'm going to be happy to deal you that fatal blow of this demonic research that you're doing. So let me continue. I'm sorry for ranting. In the same month, according to the Senate Armed Services Committee report in 2009, the Pentagon General Counsel William Haynes and other agency officials solicited information from the Joint Personnel Recovery Agency, the JPRA, the agency that oversees military SEER training to help U.S. pilots and special forces to withstand harsh interrogation techniques prohibited under the Geneva Conventions. The Department of Defense General Counsel requested information about detainee exploitation, the use of SEER methods offensively, and a list of interrogation techniques that could be used on suspected terrorist detainees. These techniques were widely discussed as experimental in nature. So that's the article. I'm going to link in the description box down below for you to read it. However, the kind of person I am, I wanted to find this statute where they believe that they derive their authority from. Now, I want you to keep in mind, in law, there's something called notwithstanding. So when there's a law that breaches the Constitution of the United States, it's notwithstanding. Okay, it's thrown out. Any argument against or any argument for the legal right to especially use a human as a non-consensual experiment like a lab rat, it's notwithstanding on any basis of the Constitution of the United States. They don't have the authority, especially when it comes to the neural monitoring. You have a right to privacy. End of discussion. So let's go ahead and read this. It's 10 U.S. Code 980.
I'll read it.
So it's limitation on use of humans as experimental subjects. I'm going to put a screenshot up of the PDF file, but I also have a link in the description below for you to look at it yourself. It's on page 517. So it reads, A, funds appropriated to the Department of Defense may not be used for research involving a human being as an experimental subject unless the informed consent of the subject is obtained in advance. Or 2, in the case of research intended to be beneficial to the subject, the informed consent of the subject or a legal representative of the subject is obtained in advance. So even in this subsection so far, they're saying informed consent of the subject must be obtained. However, if you go down to Part B, it says the Secretary of Defense, which is currently Pete Hegseth, may waive the prohibition in this section with respect to a specific research project to advance the development of a medical product necessary to the armed forces if the research project may directly benefit the subject and is carried out in accordance with all other applicable laws. Well, in my case, how they pitched this, okay, at the very beginning was that it was a behavioral study, but that's not what it was, okay? Their primary focus was brain to computer interface, or BCI, but then they weren't able to lump me in as something beneficial, right? So they pitched it to me as a behavioral study, which is it's not what it was. So nothing they've done is beneficial to me. It's been a disaster. It's been a nightmare. It's been terror on my life, and I'm very thankful to God that He's carried me through the storm so far, and I'm going to continue to walk through it, and I'm going to come out the other side, and I'm going to put an end to your project. So that's Title 10, subsection 980. Go ahead and read that for yourself. Excuse me. And so I'm not sure who the Secretary of Defense was in 2024 before Pete Hegseth, but they would have had to have a hand in me being used as a Department of Defense test subject against my consent. So there it is for you to see that our own military, our own Department of Defense, seems to believe that they have the authority to ignore the Constitution of the United States when their primary objective is to uphold the Constitution of the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic. But I'm afraid we've found ourselves in a situation where our Department of Defense.
Okay, so that's basically what I wanted to play on that today. So basically we have to address now, I don't know if Pete Hegseth is even aware of this program because he's fairly new, but this started in 2021, December 2021, when they passed this, where it under Biden, it sounds like, and then continued all the way through 2024. It seemed to, their neural monitoring type stuff started increasing during that time frame. This was all under Biden. Then the use of these fusion centers started very intensely. So the fusion centers are, I believe the same names is the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension Centers. There's one in St. Paul. They're actually run by the CIA, and they're the ones sending the information out to the police on who to target. And they're tracking you through your GPS on your phone, and it's 100% illegal. So I believe we just need to shut down these fusion centers. I don't even know what these people do. I went over there several months back when I got some kind of tip from somebody that the fusion centers are actually the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension Centers, and they're in every state. So I went over there to St. Paul, and I said, I kind of looked around, and I was like, I've never seen that building before in my life. Nobody even knows around the area what they even do. And when I went in there, they said, oh, we do fingerprinting and background checks, and it's like, but it looked to me like a big call center. I did a video about this. But I think they just need to be shut down. This is an illegal operation that's working with the CIA. The CIA is not supposed to be operating on domestic soil. Okay, and that's the other point that I want to make. Let's make that clear. So that right there should shut down that fusion center. So let's just talk about the law there that you're violating.
Some things I want to talk about.
Being the CIA operating right on domestic soil. Okay, which is illegal. Okay, so all you got to do is Google, can the CIA operate on U.S. soil? Is the CIA allowed to operate in American soil. No, the CIA is prohibited from operating within the United States to conduct intelligence activities. Its primary focus is on gathering foreign intelligence and conducting covert operations outside of the U.S. While the CIA has a presence in the U.S. for administrative functions, it's restricted from engaging in domestic surveillance or intelligence collection targeting U.S. citizens. So you're violating your own laws with the fusion centers. So we need to shut them down. It's time to shut them down. Okay? CIA's 1947 charter specifically prohibits it from spying on American citizens within the U.S. So you're violating a CIA charter that was written in 1947. So you're violating your own charters by having these centers where you're illegally providing the police with information on who to target. Okay. The law enforcement, FBI handles domestic law enforcement intelligence. CIA is supposed to focus only on foreign intelligence. Okay, so let's just get that straight. All these CIA people, all of these, and I've talked about this before, all of these people that are driving these Dodge Chargers that have been stalking me for months are CIA people violating this charter, violating the CIA laws that you are not supposed to operate on domestic soil for these type of purposes. So I mean, they have to be arrested. They have to be, somebody has to, the DOJ or whoever, the military or whatever, they have to find out who these people are, because they're violating these charters. They're violating their own. They're engaging in domestic surveillance and intelligence collection, targeting U.S. citizens. And I had that video where I caught these CIA people acting like insurance agents at the State Farm office. They're in there collecting all the data from all the people that have that are the that are real customers of State Farm. And I saw that the guy had a Dodge Charger outside, and he's in there, and I had an issue with State Farm where they wouldn't pay a claim. So then I went into this other office, and this guy acted super weird. The whole office acted super weird, and they said they're now not allowed to help me, and that they were trying to refer me to an 800 number. I mean, normally you can just go into any State Farm office. It's because I had a really hard time getting a hold of the insurance agent that was assigned to me. Literally, I could not get a hold of her, and I don't even believe it was a real real insurance agent. I believe they assigned me some. Thankfully it wasn't a bad accident, but some guy had rear-ended me, and I was just trying to get a minor claim fixed, and and this guy is in there like collecting all this data, like it was just like going nuts on the computer, like and this is illegal. They're collecting your data domestically, okay, and using it for surveillance purposes. So I don't know if this, I guess it hasn't clicked or really hit most people's, how illegal this is. They're using it to target you. Okay, so these people have to be stopped. So I'm trying to just point the laws out that they're violating, that our own government is violating.